We were expecting this to be a much harder choice for us.
Yes, but when you know, you know. Welcome to the
family. Believe me, you're making a wonderful choice. Did you hear that, Timmy? You're getting adopted. Oh, no, not you. We were talking to the rat.
Anyone remember those old Stuart Little movies where the family decides to adopt a literal fucking rat over, you know, a human boy? Oh, and how the shenanigans ensued. Well, I realize the internet hasn't quite left this franchise the legacy it deserves. So I figured why not dust off the old DVD player and pop in these early 2000 oddities to remind us just how freaking weird some of these movies we grew up watching actually were in hindsight. Like, you can't blame me for how I turned out. Have you seen Stuart Little? So strap in, cause we're about to take a look back at all 3 Stuart Little movies, and maybe even some spin-off properties we find along the way. Our first story of the Stuart opens as we see a little boy getting ready for school as he imagines all the fun things he's about to do with his new younger brother while his parents prepare for adoption.
Remember, I want a little brother, not a big brother.
Oh, and you're gonna, these writers, these are some clever writers. I'll give him that, cause he's gonna be surprised at just how little of a brother he gets. Let me tell you. With no time to breathe, we're thrown into an orphanarium where Mr. and Mrs. Little will finally get to meet the newest member of their family.
Feel free to walk around.
Thanks.
Oh, lovely people.
Okay, but was that really necessary to show? Like, we needed to be told these are lovely people? But uh-oh. All these kids look happy already? And this boy has a real "don't adopt me or you're gonna ruin our game of catch the ball" look on his face. These guys weren't expecting kids who are already happy. Orphans are supposed to be miserable and begging for soup. What's a couple to do? Well, after a brief conversation with just Stuart and none of the other kids because they happened to almost sit on him, they decide this new little rat boy and his conveniently sized books are the perfect choice for their new family. And in less than 5 minutes into the movie, we are just instantly jumping into this premise, aren't we? Oh, Screenplay by M. Night Shyamalan? Oh, I can't wait to see what kind of curveball he's got in store for us. Such a master of suspense. So after mistaking the orphanarium for a PetSmart, the Littles family brings Stuart the mouse home but forgets his cage. And unsurprisingly, the little son George is not too thrilled about his new 6-inch brother and politely storms off into a secret hole in the wall I can only assume is his room. I mean, no wonder he's furious. His parents want him to live in the fucking walls with the rat. But uh-oh, that's not the craziest part about this household. Oh no, they got a freaking cat. Oh God, of course they do. And it's followed by the cliche of putting an impossibly large object in your mouth in one bite in a funny attempt to almost eat it.
Are you cozy?
Yes, I'm quite comfortable.
Because all I've got to sleep on is a rag in the corner, you little rat.
Oh God, and the cat talks. Of course it talks. Oh, but let me guess. Only Stuart can understand him because animal logic.
This is my family.
Can't we share them?
No. Can't believe this. I'm arguing with lunch.
Wait, holy shit, no way. Is that the voice of Timon from The Lion King? I guess this was a secret second life he was Hakuna Matata-ing away from.
I gotta relax. Where's my tinkle ball?
So the very next morning, they've somehow already managed to remodel their bathroom to accommodate Stuart's small size with a Barbie-sized bathroom mirror that impressively matches the rest of the house's aesthetic. But I guess they draw the line at a properly sized toothbrush. Oh, and you thought that was bad. This new family is so unconventionally neurotic, they don't even realize they threw Stuart into the washing machine. Isn't this premise so wacky? Actually, no. You've just seriously traumatized this child. This mouse kid will forever have to live with the memory of meeting death in the eyes while Snowbell the house cat laughed in their face. I guess Stuart's muffled cries for help went unheard, but Snowbell's snarky remarks make it through the wash door just fine. And they're just having a casual conversation while your son's drowning in the other room. Whenever your new son closes his eyes, he's gonna see nothing but laundry detergent bubbles and dirty underwear, you sick, fresh-smelling freaks. I love how they almost kill him on his second day home just to go, oops, doctor says you're clean though, haha. And then immediately forget about it to go clothes shopping. But I guess it is a cool touch to see them going to a toy store to find Stuart an outfit. That's kind of cute, right? And they do eventually find the perfect outfit for Stuart to be introduced to the rest of the family in a family gathering scene that just has that Home Alone vibe all over it, you know?
Uncle Crenshaw!
Maybe it's the music. But the extended Little family just kind of glosses over Stuart's short stature and continues as planned, presenting him his welcome to the family gifts.
Looky here, Stuart. Climb on up here, son. Plant your caboose right up here.
Uncle Stretch, he can't fit on that bike. You silly f***ing idiot. George points out the obvious and storms back into his little hole in the wall. Meanwhile, Stuart's starting to get a little curious as to why he doesn't exactly resemble Mom and Dad, and uses his little cute rat eyes to guilt them into attempting to track down his real parents. But something tells me they usually don't live longer than 3 years. Oh, Google. It was Google. While they're gone, Stuart accidentally stumbles into George's room and holy shit, it's like the basement of the fucking Lego movie up in here. Are you kidding me, dude? You build miniature dioramas spanning across your entire room in your free time, and you can't see the benefit of having a 6-inch brother. My God, dude, I'm sorry, George, but you must be dumber than Uncle Stretch.
Climb on up here, Stuart.
Well, they actually do begin to bond over the love of miniatures as George shows him a boat he's been working on, and they decide to finish it together and enter it into a local race. Aren't we due for some conflict? Here we go. Snowball reaches out to the help of some alley cats to help him get rid of his, rodent problem.
That's sick. A cat can't have a rodent for a master. It's against the laws of nature.
Because apparently they've never heard of what a hamster is. We cut to the day of the boat race, and while they're setting up, George hands Stuart the responsibility of carrying the remote that's 3 times his size. George, what are you thinking? Well, Stuart can't handle the weight of the task, and somehow that's his fault. Like, George, have your dad carry the boat. Anyway, Stuart feels terrible about ruining the trip and decides the only way to fix it is to jump into the boat and drive it himself, which honestly is a great idea. Why didn't they just do that in the first place? Oh, yeah. Because the competition is a bratty little cheater who begins crashing into all the little boats, and this actually does make for a pretty intense scene with a great payoff when Stuart comes out on top, winning both the race and the approval of his new brother, George. This ends with a super touching scene where Stuart finally feels like he belongs to a family, and they're gonna live happily ever after. Wait, we're only halfway through the movie? Yeah, remember that conflict from earlier? Well, we actually do find Stuart's parents, and this, of course, is going to lead to the super sad part of the movie where everyone has to say goodbye to Stuart, because he has to live with his own kind, I guess. And right after those boys finally bonded, too. I like how the mom considers just fucking curb stomping the little rats. George offers to give them his fully functional miniature car, which is a super sweet moment. And they're off to live in the sewers, or whatever. Aw, there he goes, back into his little hole. But what's this? Stuart's parents are actually already dead? Ha ha! Called it! I mean, how seriously morbid of these parents to not further background check these people before handing off their child rat thing to them. Are you hearing this, Mrs. Keeper? This is why that was against the rules. Hearing the news, Snowbell alerts the alley cats and reveals that they were the ones who planted the fake parents. But bad kitty. The leader of the pack decides the only solution is for Stuart to get scratched. Ooh, and that'll probably leave a mark. Thankfully, Stuart's fake family refuses to hand him over to the cats and lets him get away in his cute, tiny little sports car. You just want to squeeze his little cheeks. And it all comes together for a chase sequence against some cats and a mouse. Who would have guessed? Oh, God! The car! Well, Stuart's fine. And conveniently enough, the sewer drains lead him straight back to the Little's house. But you know, we just have to have that contrived moment where Snowbell is able to convince Stuart that the family somehow all hates him, when in actuality, they're just out hanging up some lost person posters. And he's able to drive Stuart away. Well, you know, he's gonna have to walk, you know, his cool car's gone. I guess it was a necessary part of the story, though, so the alley cats can now find Stuart moping about in the park, and that leads Snowbell to have a change in heart so he can finally come in to stand up to the judgmental alley cats and save the day. Snowbell takes Stuart back to the Little's house, where, naturally, they're all home again, so we can wrap things up with a heartwarming reunion of the Little's family, and it's just as beautiful as the ending of a fairy tale. No, I mean, Stuart literally compares it to the ending of a fairy tale. Now, cue the 90s-esque musical montage sequence inside those little boxes as the credits roll by. At least Snowbell can get some amount of comeuppance there. And that's Stuart Little. Honestly, not as bad as I was expecting. Sure, it was riddled with cliches, and the child actor couldn't quite capture some of the more emotionally mature scenes. But as far as late 90s family movies go, it was a fun time. There actually were some pretty funny moments in there.
I'm gonna miss that boy.
I'm gonna miss that car.
And for 1999, the special effects held up surprisingly well, excluding some moments with the cats. For being a movie about a tiny talking mouse, we sure devoted a lot of screen time to talking cats. Luckily, our miniature adventures with Stuart have just begun. Next up is Stuart Little 2. If you thought Stuart driving boats and cars was nuts, wait till you see him in his tiny little plane. But first, a word from our sponsor. Just kidding, I don't have a sponsor. But I do have a pretty sick-ass Discord server where you can see behind-the-scenes updates on my upcoming projects, chat with some average Joes, play party games together with my custom-made 24/7 auto-hosted Jackbox VC, and way more. Probably. Be more than yourself. Be an average Joe today by joining the Average Joe Lounge, link in the description. And now, time for some big problems from a little family. Ugh. Okay, what's up with all these movies that spend the first minute of runtime showing nothing but cityscapes and establishing shots while the opening credits roll by? Am I supposed to be impressed by a city I've seen 1,000 times before? We get it, they live in New York. And is it just me, or has their house gotten brighter? Oh shit. The boys get to sleep upstairs in an actual room now? Upgrade! At this point, they've built Stuart a proper room atop a bunk bed above George, which, if you've ever actually slept on top of a bunk bed before, you're probably realizing how impractical this is. Every time George rolls over, Stuart's gonna have himself a level 3 earthquake, destroying his cute doll-sized furniture, which, now that I think about it, is probably literally just dollhouse furniture. You know, like the kind that fills the fridge with stickers of food in it. What are the chances that tiny-ass calculator actually works? Is Stuart about to turn in his comically small handwriting he's written on that desk for a human teacher to grade? Okay, I'm thinking too much into this. I loved to see shit like this growing up in movies. The creativity of building a Tinker Toy contraption to help Stuart down from his room in the morning just made my imagination run wild when I saw this as a kid. What other cool inventions are we gonna see in the movie that they've built for Stuart's small size? Could I build my own versions of these contraptions to play with in real life? I want to see more creative solutions like this, and less the remote-controlled toy car can actually be driven on the inside movie magic. Stuart wakes George to remind him it's their first day of soccer practice, and oh my god. Soccer practice? Really? Stuart going to soccer practice. They are just setting this boy up for failure, aren't they?
George, it's the first day of soccer. It's our first game.
This scene is the first time I was really reminded that Stuart is supposed to be a young child, but his voice is clearly that of a full-grown male, and I don't know. Him talking about getting ready for school and stuff just feels a little off, you know? Should we remind ourselves that the life of a mouse is so short that he'll probably die before reaching a high school education? We should be teaching him rat things, like how to hide in a hat to help a chef cook. The parents have a conversation asking themselves if this whole soccer thing is really a good idea for Stuart. And no, it's not. It's really not. You are not overreacting. Your son is about to be trampled.
Oh, honey, he's a little. All littles are natural athletes.
Yeah, but does that whole athleticism runs in our blood logic work through adoption, though?
That's it for you.
She had one bite. Oh, yeah, they have another kid now. So I guess that makes 2 kids and 2 pets.
Wallace, get up! Oh,
Yeah, this'll go fine.
Mom, Dad, I'm going in. Don't worry, Coach. I won't let you down.
How? How are you not going to let him down? The ball is 5 times your size. Part of being a good athlete is knowing the strengths and weaknesses of your body type. I weigh under 200 pounds. I'm not about to enthusiastically enter myself into sumo wrestling. George stands there like an idiot until he decides Stuart needs a little kick in the right direction, winning them the entire game. But Stuart seems unhappy about all this. The next day, we see them building that plane Stuart rides and all that promotional material around the movie. They're concerned Mom would never let Stuart ride it, but obviously he does. We've all seen the movie trailer, guys. It worked, we're here watching it, until George immediately ditches him to play with the boy's real best friend, the PlayStation 2.
One is the loneliest number.
F off, Timon. Stuart clumsily takes off in the plane, but they actually do take the antics seriously this time. He obviously has no idea how to fly a plane and fucks their shit up outside. Mom is furious and, in her anger, throws their plane into the trash, claiming it's way too dangerous. I mean, I guess they were right to be concerned, but that's a pretty harsh punishment, right? Like, you couldn't have worked out some sort of safer compromise where Stuart can only ride the plane when it's attached to a string on the ground, or having George handle it like a kite, or something. These boys spent hours working on it together. It has sentimental value. Why would you buy them a working miniature plane in the first place if you knew you wouldn't want them flying it? The next day at school, we see that Stuart's been having a hard time making friends of his own outside of George.
Some of the guys are going over to Will's house to play basketball for a while.
Can I come?
They didn't exactly mention that you invited.
Because no one wants the responsibility of looking after the class pet, not even George. Nice to see they got Stuart a new car, though. I couldn't imagine him having to walk around this human-sized world on his own and actually get anywhere on time. It feels like they've really taken the effort to fully plan out the logistics of how Stuart's life would actually work here, and I do appreciate the detail. George ditches Stuart for a second time, requesting he lie and cover him so Mom thinks Stuart was safely escorted home. A classic older brother move. On his way home, all this starts to really weigh down on Stuart. How can he expect to make friends in this world when everyone he meets could squash him like a bug? He's just having trouble fitting in. Shocker, I know, but what's he supposed to do? He's being raised as if he were human, and it's not like a friend his size is just gonna fall out of the sky. Oh, you've got to be kidding me. So this little ladybird named Margalo falls into Stuart's car and wakes up to alert him of a falcon still chasing her. Stuart helps them get away and takes the injured winged Margalo back to the Littles' house. The rest of the family seem to take an instant liking to her, and the father thinks Stuart may even have a crush on her.
Frederick, did you have many crushes?
I'm still having one.
This man just slicked his way out of that trick question like a pro. Stuart insists she spend the night to give her wing time to heal, and shares his dissatisfaction with how boring his life has become. We learn that she's been an orphan most her life, and shares her perspective on how every day can be a fun new adventure, even when you're just going to school. It's all about how you approach the situation. But she's not going to school, and calls Stuart kid on the way out. How old are these animals supposed to be? What's the age gap here? Mom says she'll look after Margalo while Stuart's gone, and then immediately ditches her to go shopping instead. Once she's gone, Margalo flies out the window to get a better view of the city, and oh god, she's faking her injuries. Ooh, the drama. Is this a cougar or a yellow canary? You know what I'm saying? And karma.
Remember me?
Ooh, let me guess. That falcon is the guy who voices Hades in Disney's Hercules. Nailed it. Oh, I'm on a roll with these voice actors. Wait, did he just say they're working together on a con man job to steal all the valuables from the Littles? But Margalo is hesitant because the family was really nice to her so they can set up her eventual redemption at the end of the movie where she learns the true value of family and turns against the falcon at the end? I wasn't paying attention. Then we get a montage sequence showing all the family bonding happening with Margalo, and it seems like she's really leaning into her con job. And I mean really leaning into it. You know you're different species than her, right, Stuart? You can't f*** a bird. But it seems like Stuart's irresistible charm is just too good to fly under her radar. She's completely smitten by Stuart's romantic gestures when he fixes her pin she crash-landed on. And I think this is the night that mouse became a real rat. And Falcon's got a bird's eye view of the whole thing. Gross. So he's pissed and literally confronts her while she takes a bath just to emphasize how disturbing this guy really is. And you know, he's gonna do the whole villain shtick. Get the valuable ring or I'm gonna kill the guy you love, blah, blah, blah. So the ring conveniently disappears right after the husband takes over dish duty. Uh-oh. Can't slick your way out of this one, can you, Frederick? But he's sure as hell gonna try. No, don't worry. Stuart wants to go down the garbage disposal. It's like an adventure or something. So come on, everybody. Let's put our son in the garbage disposal. Let's put our son in the garbage disposal.
Ding, 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 ding. Someone that you and I love has volunteered to go down the drain to get your ring.
Stuart, we let our son go down the kitchen drain.
Now, Eleanor, don't be upset.
Ding, 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 ding. Margalo feels bad for signing Stuart's death sentence and swoops in to save the day. Not only that, but she sees that Mom cares way more about Stuart's safety than any dumb old ring. Is this what real family looks like? But with another job complete, Margalo migrates out of their house in the midst of the night, never to be seen again. The end. Just kidding, we're only halfway through the movie again. Stuart is not taking this breakup well, and decides the only reasonable explanation for her leaving must be a Falcon-related kidnapping. He has George return the favor for covering for him earlier, and he and a reluctant Snowbell are off on a nighttime adventure to save his criminal friend. or I guess daytime adventure? Because it takes them so long that George has to explain why Stuart didn't come home from school the next day. Snowbell suggests they ask for help from his alley cat friend Monty they left for dead in an ice-cold river last movie. When we find him, his ass is getting kicked out of a restaurant by every member of the staff at once. What's he got, rabies or something?
Now pay attention. What do you know about a bird called falcon?
Falcon? Yeah, no, that's not like a species of a general type of bird or anything. No, yeah, I know falcon. How's your owner doing, by the way? What was her name again? Wasn't it human? He does this whole please thing again, so I guess that's like his catchphrase now.
Salmon, catfish, tuna. Why do they taunt me?
Okay, so Snowbell can read. At this point, it's starting to get a little concerning that their mom hasn't seen Stuart for 2 days now and is still not the least bit suspicious of George's terrible lying strategies. Because she would definitely not be okay with Stuart's next idea.
What are you planning to do, Mighty Mouse? Scale the wall?
Nah, but could you imagine though? Good thing the wind was conveniently blowing in the right direction too, because he would have absolutely no control over where that balloon's going.
All right, Falcon, hand her over and nobody gets hurt.
Yeah, I've got one toothpick-sized arrow and I'm not afraid to use it. And you better hope I miss too, because then I'll need to go and retrieve it before trying to shoot you again. So, look out. Stuart confronts Falcon only for it to be revealed that Margalo was playing the long con all along. Margalo tries to apologize and stands up for Stuart, leading Falcon to throw her back into her prison cell. Stuart tries to stand up to him, and yeah, he's a fucking goner. Actually, you know what? Stuart surviving this fall is probably one of the most realistic parts of the movie. You know how slow the terminal velocity of something as light as a mouse would be? There's actually a good chance he could have walked this off even by landing in the grass or something. But nope. He lands in a garbage truck and doesn't wake up until all of the garbage is dumped onto a boat to be dropped off at that really disgusting part of the world where everyone's trash goes. You know the place I'm talking about. But the trip takes months, and Stuart must learn to adapt by eating old banana peels and sleeping on a pile of coffee-stained Beanie Babies until their eventual arrival where he's burned to a crisp in the incinerator like it's fucking Toy Story 3. Alright. He finds the plane they threw in the trash earlier in the movie. Meanwhile, Snowbell works up the courage to find his way to the top of the tower to save Stuart when he doesn't come back. You know what? That took guts, Snowbell. I think I'm finally ready to forgive you for secretly putting Stuart back up for adoption in the last movie.
Margalo? Where are you?
In the can.
Oh, okay, I'll wait.
He helps Margalo escape, and she takes off with the ring in an attempt to lure Falcon away from turning Snowbell into a snow puddle. Meanwhile, George's throne of lies finally caves as he's forced to tell his parents where Stuart's gone. Oh God! The car again! What? Why always the car? Well, earlier in the movie, the father did tell Stuart to always look for a silver lining. And I guess the bright side here is that where Stuart's going, he don't need roads. He needs a miracle. And by gosh, is he gonna get one. Because after one crash landing in the park, Stuart can now expertly weave his way around New York to Ex Machina Margalo back to a temporary safety.
Where did you get the plane?
A garbage dump!
Sorry I asked.
Things have all built up to a final showdown in the park, just as the Littles family arrive by abusing this taxi cab driver who is way too quick to recklessly endanger other people's lives to save Stuart's here. Was he ever even debriefed on what's happening, or does he just think these people are really into being on time? They jump out of the taxi and ask him to leave it running, implying they'll come back to pay him later, but oh shoot. I don't think they ever remembered to. Stuart and Falcon decide to play a game of aerial chicken, and Stuart wins because he's a little cheater. His escape route may have failed, but don't worry. He's got Margalo now to catch him when he falls. So the day is saved, and Monty finally finds a decent meal. But we actually are going to end this movie on kind of a bittersweet note, because Margalo really is going to migrate out of the Littles' house for the winter. And as much as I'd still like to say she was never seen again, I actually can, because she's nowhere to be found in the third movie. Womp womp. And that's a wrap on Stuart Little 2. You know, the first movie was a little better. Not by much, but the story felt way more focused. We spent the first 10 minutes of this movie watching Stuart fail at the impossible task of playing soccer, and what was the point of that exactly? To show us that Stuart feels like he doesn't fit in? That he's being coddled and needs more room to grow? I don't know, it kind of felt like these Littles were all over the place. But out of all the places they did go, none of them were places where Stuart did fit in or was treated more like an adult. He was just the hero who saved his friend by sneaking out against the will of his super protective parents. Was the solution instead supposed to be that he finds a new friend since George kinda sucks? Cause not only did she leave at the end, but Margalo came across as more of a love interest instead. Like they couldn't make up their minds on if he needed to find love or a friend his size. I guess they purposefully left it vague enough for us to not know for sure if this relationship winds up as anything more than just friends. Probably for the best, too. Could you imagine Stuart trying to make out with that beak? I feel like this script could have used more time in the oven, but they rushed it to get the sequel out before having to explain why George went through puberty or something. I'll be honest, I am not looking forward to this last movie. I initially skipped out on it because even as a kid, I knew this shit looked lame as fuck. It's gonna be fully CG animated and direct to DVD. In other words, it's low effort garbage because their last movie hardly made back its budget. And I guess all their cheap movie tie-in video games weren't the heavy hitters they were hoping for either. So before diving into the disaster that is Stuart Little 3, I thought it'd be more fun to first take a quick detour to see what the other side of this franchise was like. Were these games truly every kid's fantasy of flying a toy plane through New York like the real Stuart Little? Or were they just more licensed cash grabs? But if you're not a true gamer, you could just skip ahead with those conveniently placed video markers. Alright, so I won't spend too much time on this game, because the developers of Stuart Little 2 for the PS1 were thinking the same thing. I mean, there's not really much to say. It's a short 7-level 3D platforming collectathon akin to Super Mario 64 that can be beaten in about 4 hours. But for 2002, it's not bad by any means. I mean, sure, you'll be fighting against the camera controls and Stuart can feel a bit janky to move around, but you can't expect perfection when 3D games were still a whole new genre to tackle in the video game landscape at the time. Like, its competition was the Toy Story games. So for an early 2000s licensed kid game, I've definitely seen worse. But with that being said, what the hell is up with these dialogue boxes? The only way to progress through the unskippable text boxes is by pressing down on the D-pad. Just to reveal the last of it says press X to close, and holy hell, the tutorial is absolutely miserable.
Okay, I have control of Stuart. None of my buttons seem to do anything. I can't like jump or anything like that. I guess that's the PS1 for you.
You literally can't even jump until Margalo gives you permission to. Natural progression? Figuring things out on your own? Never heard of it. Stop pressing that button. I haven't told you how to press it yet.
The throwing animation. Only his arm moves. Nothing else. That's throwing for you.
The sprint button makes you charge at full speed even without touching the joystick. Enemies respawn seconds after you kill them, if you can kill them at all. Snowbell is reduced to a floating paw print because they were too lazy to make a 3D model for him. Respawn tokens can go to hell. And why are there so many blocks with Stuart's face on them?
Excellent hunting, Stuart. You have found a face block.
Excellent hunting, Stuart. You have found a face block.
You know, if you were a fun kid in the 2000s, I'm sure you would have loved this game. But I'm a sad adult in 2024 that just finished replaying Super Mario Odyssey, and it just makes me appreciate how far we've come as a society. The game follows the plot of the movie well enough.
Oh, we're going down the garbage disposal.
It even throws in some movie clips along the way to show off all the internal memory a PS1 disc can hold. Take that, Nintendo. And it did have some mini-games to discover that were pretty fun, but I couldn't get myself to finish it. I'm sure it was a good product of its time, but it just can't fill that empty void in my heart. Hopefully Stuart Little 3 Call of the Wild has what it takes to make me complete. Please, I just want to feel like I belong. So, here it is. The moment we've all been dreading towards. I think it's finally time we took a look back at the movie that left a permanent stain on the name Stuart Little. Because what could possibly top the thrilling city-spanning adventure across all of New York that was the last movie? We've already seen Stuart crash boats down treacherous waters, race across sewer pipes to escape a pack of wild, hungry alley cats, plunge the depths of the kitchen drain, master aerial combat. So the next logical step is obviously having him go to summer camp. The movie opens with Stuart getting attacked by the smallest bear in the world. Either that or Stuart's really grown since the last movie. Only to reveal that he's actually just been playing with the miniature toys in their basement. Oh, I guess the size discrepancy makes sense then. They reintroduced Stuart's character arc from the last movie where he wants to be treated more like an adult but is too coddled by his mom. And Snowbell creates a white lie to hide from the shame of Monty and the rest of the alley cats finding out that Snowbell has to spend the summer camping with the rest of the family. Okay, who the brings their cat on a camping trip? Snowbell's right, actually. Letting him have a pet door to the open city of New York and not at all being surprised when they find him roaming around Central Park is one thing, but forcing your domesticated animal out in the middle of the woods for a whole summer is a whole new level of Snowbell abuse.
Now you're gonna have to rough it just like the rest of us.
That's malicious slander.
We're going to a fancy resort.
It's paradise.
Hey, can I come?
Can you come? Yeah, well, it's the Littles. They don't like you. And I'll think of you when I'm eating caviar for breakfast.
Yo, but dude, you don't gotta be a dick about it.
Time to go, Snow.
And that face says everything you need to know about their relationship. Also, does anyone else find it immediately cringe to watch a character wrap themselves up in a white lie subplot? You honestly think they're gonna let one of the main characters in their children's movie get away with not telling the truth? Grow up, Susie. This is the real world. People figure shit out. On the way there, everyone shoots out some quick exposition of what they want accomplished over the summer. Snowbell wants to die, George wants to play his weird-looking Game Boy, and Mom wants to spend the whole time relaxing. Wait, so the parents are gone all summer too? Okay, what kind of job do these guys have where they can afford 3 kids, a 2-story home in the middle of New York City, and spend 4 months of the year vacationing in their fancy cabin in the woods? Because I clearly picked the wrong career path. Oh, and what does Stuart want?
There's a group there called the Lake Scouts.
That's good, son.
I want to join.
That's not so good.
Not to be immediately shot down by Mom, that's for sure. This is a whole new level of handbrake coddling by Mom here. I mean, I can totally understand her not wanting him to play soccer, but this completely demonizes her character to a point where it begins to feel like the only thing holding her son back from greatness is how hard it is getting that giant stick out of her ass. You're the one taking him camping, and you clearly have nothing on your schedule. Let him join the Scouts. At least Dad has some actual sense and convinces her otherwise, on the condition that he follows Stuart every step of the way.
And George can join too?
No way! I've got to get to level 38 by the end of the summer.
Ah, good old George. You know him. Always glued to his video games, apparently. He must have given up on building miniatures and shit after Mom threw away their fucking amazing plane for being too fucking amazing.
Don't sit too close to the fire. You'll burn yourself. Don't sit too far away from the fire. You'll catch cold. Remember, mosquitoes bite is bacteria's delight.
God, I am already starting to hate her character in this movie. Oh. I guess I need to redact that fancy cabin statement. Cause what kind of backwater hillbilly timeshare scam is this? Stuart cannot get George unglued from his game until...
Hi, I'm Brooke.
Oh lord. And you know she's conveniently going to explain everything these guys need to know about roughing it out in these parts. You know, like how there's a cat-eating beast roaming around the woods because of course there is. That George should use the cheat code XXYeahBaby for unlimited ammo in his game, where he could sign up for the Lake Scouts. Oh, and he's already going. Snowbell immediately buys the beast-eating cat rumor and scares himself shitless finding Monty, who had stowed away in the Littles car to tag along.
What are you doing here?
I stowed away in the trunk. So, this is the fancy resort?
Well, it looked much better in the brochure.
Huh. I guess that white lie subplot wasn't dragging out as long as I was expecting it to.
Well, I'm glad you came, but now you have to leave.
All the way back to New York?
There's a new thing called walking.
Man, I don't even know why we're friends.
Monty raises a good point there, Snowbell, which is further demonstrated when Snowbell realizes he could be using Monty as bait against the cat-eating beast if he was kept stowed under the cabin. Good thinking, I guess. Who needs friends? Or integrity?
Look at them sleeping. They've got nothing to worry about. I, on the other hand, have to find a place to hide.
You're already inside the cabin. Pretty sure that's where the girl said to keep your cats if you want them safe. Dude, you are blowing this beast rumor thing way out of proportion. Or maybe not, because the beast is totally real and has apparently been intimidating the entire forest to hand over their food rations. Think Stuart's gonna take him down as easily as that miniature bear in their basement. We get to officially meet this skunk character who has to bargain for his life when he has no food to offer. Should've stolen George's shit when you had the chance, because George sure as hell had no problem stealing it from Stuart. The next morning, Mom repeats her obnoxious list of no having fun rules, and they're off to join the Scouts. When we get there, they find the most incompetent scout leader in the world. I mean, has this guy ever done, anything before? George's dad offers to help out as an assistant.
But don't you think you're a little too big to be a scout?
And yeah, this guy clearly needs it. He literally thought it was a skull assessment and began rubbing the Scouts' heads. Ugh. How can you be trying too hard to make a character come off like an idiot, yet still have it feeling lazy at the same time?
I'm Bickle Master Troop. I mean Troop Master Bickle.
He can't even get his name right. Was this dope the only head of authority at Camp Dumbass before Frederick came around? Cause if that's the case, a ravenous beast roaming the woods should be the least of these kids' concern. What the f***? Did he just gesture to his wife 3 miles away assuming she'd be spying on them and she was? That is not normal cute couple behavior. Frederick has actually settled for that one crazy chick in high school who wouldn't stop stalking her exes. Also, I guess she has a knack for handiwork since she's decided to fix up the cabin instead of relaxing for the summer. That definitely implies they own the place, right? She wouldn't be fixing up a rental, but she would give a thumbs up back to the person she's watching through binoculars as if they can see her too. The scouts are starting out day 1 with a boat race, which seems a bit intense. Like, what happened to the day where you learn how to tie knots and shit? Are they even teaching these kids anything, or do they just assume all 10-year-olds know how to competitively canoe across the lake? And I hate to be a stickler here, but I'm not seeing any life jackets on those kids you never taught how to swim. Gonna have to dock you some points for that one, Mr. Bickle.
I'm being attacked by a shark! Oh no. Oh dear, I'm going down.
Yup, see? This is the kind of shit I was talking about. So Stuart finishes last place in the race, since what the f did you expect? But wait, none of the other scouts believe him when he says he was attacked by a fish because his boat had a conveniently placed piece of string in it sticking out that wasn't in the last shot? Okay, you were all standing there watching him, right? Like, what the fuck? You're telling me none of you saw his boat get water skied across the lake just now? God fucking damn it. Stuart gets shamed by his dad for finishing last, and we get a music montage showing all the competition Stuart is placing last in because they won't accommodate for a smaller size in challenges where the odds are so obviously unfairly weighed against him.
Hey, Stuart. Shark!
I'm just kidding.
Alright, what the fuck is wrong with this camp? I mean, this isn't just a dumb troop master being bad at his job. This is straight up discrimination. What, next you're gonna fail and publicly shame the kid in a wheelchair for not doing a foot race? And the worst part is Stuart's dad is enabling it too. As the troop master's assistant, he has the power to even the odds by giving Stuart a comparatively sized target, but instead just shakes his head and says try harder next time. Great advice, Dad. And when Mom was fired for requesting time off because she was pregnant, it's just because she wasn't trying hard enough. Man, f these guys. During a hiking trip, Stuart gets separated from the rest of the group and meets Rico the skunk, who's been trying to steal the food out of his little backpack. After the two have a close encounter with the beast, Stuart decides this skunk is just who he's been looking for to train him on how to master both Mother Nature and the scouts. For a fee, of course. And within another musical montage where Stuart constantly ditches the rest of the group during their hiking trips because I guess that's all they do now, these two have really become friends. Close enough that Stuart invites Rico to their next family dinner, and
I want you to meet my friend, Rico. I invited him for dinner. Is that okay?
yeah, this won't be awkward at all.
So, Stuart, where did you and Rico meet?
Well, it was like this. Well, I guess that just about covers it.
Okay, they're just teasing us at this point. Can the family understand the rest of the talking animals or not? I don't even think there was a time when Margalo spoke directly to the human characters either. Well, at least Rico's finally gotten enough food to pay back the beast, right?
Oh man, who am I kidding? I owe the beast way more.
Oh, god damn it, Rico. What happened to all those marshmallows Stuart was paying you? Don't tell me your ribcage looking ass slurped them all down during the montage. So he realizes he could fill his quota by tricking Snowbell into attending the next sacrifice. You know, cat-eating beast and all. And with some cheap flattery, Snowbell is successfully convinced that the beast is fake and all the forest animals are just going to have a cute little party. Wow. So much for Rico being the cool skunk with the funk. Why does everyone in this movie suck except Stuart? So the only character with a shred of decency in this movie finds Snowball running off into the woods and chases off after him in another Stuart rescue attempt. At the, party, Snowball starts to notice how lame the vibes are at this place.
They probably think I'm crashing the party. Hey guys, it's all right. I'm on the A-list.
He's on the menu.
This is a good time to mention that they replaced his voice actor in this movie with the more cost-effective Timon impersonator, but he does a great job, right? Anyway, so Snowball's gonna die, and is still absolutely clueless about what's going on.
It's the Mount Everest of edibles.
Oh man, Snowbell. I didn't know you liked to party.
Hang on, Snowbell!
So wait, the cat-eating beast is actually just a beast of a cat? But even with all that human food, it still takes off with Snowbell. I mean, hey, when you know what you want. So Stuart goes to get help and...
Mom, Dad, Snowbell and I were out in the woods, and the beast's got him.
Nightmare.
No, it's real. We gotta save him.
Sounds like quite a dream.
Okay, then go check on the cat. If it was just a dream, then where's the fucking cat? If everyone just assumed that Stuart always tells the truth, but that anyone else is a filthy liar, their lives would be a hell of a lot simpler. He tries to warn the scouts too, and obviously they don't believe him either.
I'm telling you the truth. Snowbell's in big trouble.
Was he taken by the shark?
Oh, you, Bickle. Your dumbass just tried to pitch a tent by singing to it. You're so stupid you sprayed bug spray on your laptop to protect it. You are so dumb. I just saw you try to Google why you have no cell service. You poison ivy licking ass bitch. Ugh. Snowbell's probably already been eaten anyways. He was captured last night. But actually, no. Because this beast doesn't just want to eat Snowbell, she's gonna first fatten him up to be skinned alive to turn his fur into a fucking rug. Jesus Christ, dude. You are officially the Buffalo Bill of children's movies.
It rubs the lotion on its skin or else it gets the hose again.
Eat.
I take it back, Snowbell. You were right to be this paranoid. Which makes it all the more frustrating that nobody is going to help Stuart save him. I'm just gonna say it. This is why you don't take your cat camping. So in what feels like the 8th musical montage in this movie, Stuart prepares another rescue attempt to save his friend. He leaves George a critically important note informing him that he's again run away from the family and, oh shoot, it got lost.
The beast took Snowbell.
I'm sorry to hear that. Wow, he was a great guy. Let's take a moment of silence. Okay, done. I'm sure we'll all miss him. Take care now.
Hole.
Rico, I'm going. With or without you.
Then I'd say it's without me.
Fucking hole.
Dude, you weren't the one who sent him straight into the jaws of the beast.
Sent him? Why would you do that?
It's complicated.
Yeah, see, all that food you helped me gather for the beast, I ended up eating it myself. Then I chose to sacrifice your friend instead and only gave his moment of silence 0.3 seconds. Oh, huh. Well, I guess it wasn't all that complicated. Also, great to see Frederick is really watching Stuart every step of the way. Is there ever going to be a point here when anyone thinks, hey, you know, where's that one scout we should be keeping an extra close eye on due to how easily he could be injured? The entire second half of this movie is spent with Stuart playing hooky, while no one at camp realizes he's gone. But what can you expect from Troop Master's Dad of the Year and Camp Counselor dipshit?
Come on, scouts. Time to scrub the toilets. Who's excited?
I guess he's not missing much. At least they find that I'm running away note Stuart left, but they're gonna have to drag this out as long as possible, so he's not gonna read it just yet.
Be careful, you'll lose that.
Hey, where's Stuart?
Ding, ding, ding! Congratulations, George! You have just asked the $1 million question. Please pick your prize. Grounded for life, or the guilt and shame of knowing you could have prevented this? You know what? Just take both. You've earned it. Stuart's able to make it into the beast's cave, and it's a good thing he filled his backpack with nothing but matches and 9 feet of rope, because he's gonna need it.
Snowbell, step through the loop.
The two only narrowly escape the cave, but this beast isn't far behind. Knowing they can't outrun her forever, Stuart does some quick thinking and...
Can't run anymore.
It's true. Look at me. I'm in no condition for this.
A trap.
Oh no.
It wasn't quick enough. Meanwhile, the parents finally decide to read Stuart's note and tries to get a proper search party together to find him, but...
Hold on a second. Isn't this a bit much? First we had the shark in the lake story. I mean, what's next here? Sasquatch?
Let's get one thing straight. If my son says there's a beast out there, then by golly, there's a beast out there.
Yeah, you tell him, Frederick. If only you felt this way a few hours ago, your son may not be getting mauled right now. Luckily, Rico's had a change of heart and convinces the rest of the forest animals to finally help put an end to the beast's rug collecting. With the help of Stuart's trap, of course. But, no, seriously? How in the hell did Stuart manage to shove that much rope in his backpack? Are you expecting me to believe he had the time to recollect all that rope he used to get Snowbell before hightailing it out of the cave? I mean, he had to be packing a good 16 feet of full-size rope up in there, at least. I guess he really did pay attention during those knot tying lessons. The search party finds him 8 hours later when he definitely would have been cat food by now if it weren't for Rico. I mean, Rico also got them into this mess, but, you know.
Wow, awesome.
Stuart, get away from the beast.
Mom, she can't hurt anyone now.
Ranger 1 inbound to the zoo. We got a stinker here. This one needs a bath.
Stuart, you are too noble, man. I would have shoved this in everybody's faces so hard, dude. I wouldn't even want the stupid handkerchief anymore. I mean, seriously? F these guys. If Stuart wasn't such a rope expert, they'd all be suspects of a double homicide. And don't give me that Stuart chose to run away. It's not their fault, crap. He was an unsupervised child with a growing disability left to fend for himself in the woods. I'd honestly be feeling a lot better about this happy movie wrap-up moment if Bickle ended up in cuffs for child endangerment. Anyways, let's wrap up these arcs. Rico's the cool skunk with the funk again, and thanks Stuart for helping him realize the importance of friendship. George gets a kiss from that scout girl and makes a dumb romantic gesture where he wants her to have his Game Boy. Did you forget that she was the one that taught you those cheat codes? She's definitely already played that game before. Would have made a lot more sense to keep your console and just add each other as friends or something. Bickle is still an idiot like always, and Snowball finds Monty, who actually did stay at a fancy resort just over the hills. God, I love that. Oh, yeah, I forgot to mention, Monty ditched Snowball earlier in the movie because he forgot he was supposed to be feeding him or something, and he and the Littles family head back to New York because apparently that adventure took all summer. The end. For real this time. Welp, that was, without question, the worst Stuart Little movie out there. The pacing was all over the place. Everyone in the family but Stuart got regressed into one-note shells of their former selves. And your reverse boy who cried wolf narrative, where the only guy to tell the truth in this world is also the only one people won't believe, was unbearably frustrating to witness. But is it one of the worst animated movies out there, period? No, it was fine. It just really did not live up to what this trilogy could have been building up to, which is a real shame, because those first 2 movies really weren't that bad at all. I feel like there's still so much potential for this little mouse. What if he accidentally got wrapped up in a science lab or something, and the Littles family has to point him out in a massive group of 10,000 other lab rats? But when they find him, he's been subjected to genetic modifications, and now he's Mighty Mouse. Okay, well, maybe not that, but you know, something like that. And there have actually been rumors circulating about a possible Stuart Little reboot. Maybe this isn't the last we've seen of the little guy. But for now, I think that just about wraps everything up. That was every piece of Stuart Little property I could find. And trust me, if there were any more Stuart Little adventures to cover, I'd be the first to know. What the fuck?